Remarkable people overcoming remarkable challenges with resilience, dedication, community, and grit. Listen as they share their stories of overcoming adversity. Open your eyes to what is genuinely possible for all of us. Authentic Adversity with host Chris Howe.
This episode of the Authentic Adversity podcast is brought to you and sponsored by Another Road Drug and Alcohol Treatment Center. Another Road offers a client-centered recovery program tailored to every individual's circumstances. Their focus is to create a supportive, healing environment rather than a rigid, rule-based institution. Their dedicated commitment upholds the individual values respecting each person's desire for recovery. Another Road understands that every individual requires a unique and focused approach to their recovery. Certain modalities of treatment are introduced along with the tools necessary for each client. Located in a rural setting, their addiction treatment center for all genders provides the perfect setting for a transformative recovery experience and sense of belonging. The private residential treatment facility offers an unparalleled program with counselors that have in-depth knowledge based on varying years of experience in addiction. Another Road utilizes unique, individual-focused plans for recovery that address the complexities of drug addiction, alcoholism, and prescription medication misuse. They have a 65% success rate when clients follow their program. I know many people who have completed this program, and they have absolutely rave reviews. To learn more, visit anotherroad.ca.
Yeah. So kept on getting ready for work. It's like around 11 o'clock, and getting ready for work. It's like 12:30, and I'm like, I haven't heard from her. She's going to call me back. I wonder what's going on. And I get this missed call from a New York number that I don't know. And, wasn't like answering calls from numbers I didn't know.
Sure.
I was like, oh, they'll leave a message, whatever. So I'm like shaving, and 5 minutes later, same number. So I pick it up and I answer the phone, and it's a friend of hers. And she's like, hey, he's like, hey, did you hear about Janine? And I was like, no. And, he's like, she got shot. I was just in shock. And I was like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, she got shot. I'm trying to figure out what these words mean in my mind.
Right.
And so what had happened was she had terminated the guy. He went to his car. He had a breakdown, and whether he was on steroids, whatnot, he got a gun. He walked back inside, and he came in through a back entrance, and he shot her in the head.
My God. It's really, I mean, I want to take a second and just acknowledge, your vulnerability, and, it's the most tragic thing to hear about something like this. And, she's just doing her job, and something like this happens. And, I'm truly, I don't know how to say I'm sorry enough for, this thing happening to her and you too, as a couple. It's, what is your, what happens to your life then? Like, this is, I mean, it's so abrupt. It's so you can't plan for something like this. This is a very tragic, and it's unspeakable, right? And so what happens to you then?
You just start to ask yourself endless amount of questions,
Right.
That morning she'd been leaving for work, and I was in the kitchen, and every morning I say goodbye to her, and she's like, are you going to come say goodbye to me? And I like walk to the door, like half run, and I hold her, and I hug her, and I kiss her, and I tell her I love her. We tell each other I love you. And every single time she like walks out the door and she walks down the path, and I always open the door and I call her, and I'm like, hey. She turns around, and I'm like, I love you.
Yeah.
It was the first time I didn't do that.
Oh, wow.
I said goodbye to her at the door, and it was the first time I didn't open the door again and call her name.
Wow.
And all that morning she was like, she's like, something feels off today. She's like, I don't know what it is. Something feels off.
Really?
And there's this thing in the air. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this like premonition, this feeling. And you start to think about all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm there and I was like in a towel when I'm hearing that she's shot. And I like go to grab some clothes and I'm like, well, what do I even wear? And I end up just grabbing like a jeans and a t-shirt, putting something on and driving over to the gym. It was like 5 minutes from our house.
Yeah.
And I called her mom on the way, and I was like really hopeful. He's like, I don't know where she got shot. They got her friend on the phone. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I think she's at the hospital. I don't know what's going on. They won't tell us anything. And I called her mom on the ride. And, her mom and I had been talking at this point for some years now. And she's like, is everything okay? And I was like, no. And she's like, let me sit down. And I tell her, and I tell her, she's been shot. I don't know what's happened. I don't know anything more than this. I'm going to find out now. And she's like, okay. She's like, we're going to get some flights and come down. And I get to the gym and it's at this mall and there's cops everywhere. And I like leave my car on the street and trying to get information. And one cop finally sees, I'm like about to lose my mind. And he's like, park your car and I will drive you. She's at the hospital. I'll drive you. So this cop, this angel, I mean, I don't know his name. I don't have his badge number, man, but this man, I am so grateful for this man who drove me, because if I had driven myself to the hospital, I would have killed somebody. Like the roads, everything.
Yeah, he was there for you when you needed him the most, and provided that service for you to. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get there.
So we get there and we walk in, and the emergency doors open. We walk in the room, and then the other doors, like the operating room, opens, and I see gurneys and I see doctors doing things, and I surely see her on a gurney, And it was so fast, in and out. And I was like, is she in there? He's like, you can't go in there. It's like, you can't go in there. I'm like, she's in there. And he's like, you can't go in. You have to go over here. And I'm waiting in this place. And hours are going by. And people start showing up. And this guy comes in. He's asking all these questions and everything. More and more people come. And what happened that day was, he shot her in the head. He stood over her. He shot her again in the chest. This 230-pound bodybuilder on steroids needs a gun to kill a 125-pound angel
for doing her job. For doing her job,
because he couldn't handle losing his job.
Yeah,
this is what he does. And so then he shoots another manager who's his friend, in the neck because he was involved in the firing, and he ends up dying the next day. And he looks for another manager, his best friend, who was also part of it, couldn't find him. And then he goes into the bathroom and he shoots himself. So there was, there's no restitution. There's no justice to be had here. There's nothing. There's just waiting. Yeah. And we're waiting a few hours, and, more information is coming out that she was shot in the head. They don't have any information. And I'm praying in the hospital. I'm really praying. I'm like, I can deal with anything. I'll deal with anything as long as she's alive.
Right.
Praying for this. And then finally some doctors come, some police, and they take me in a room, my best friend. And, now they know I'm not her husband, because in Florida, there's no common law marriage. And if you're not next of kin, they don't give any information, whatever. And they're like, well, where is her family? I'm like, they're on flights right now. They're coming. I'm like, I live with her, all this, and I have to prove to them who I am.
That you're worthy of this information. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, well, unfortunately, we tried everything we could. There was too much damage to the spinal cord, and she passed. And I was just in shock, just absolute shock.
Right. And as anyone would be. I mean, geez, that is so. It's heartbreaking, and it's so sudden, and this abrupt interruption of your, the life that you had dreamed about, and all these plans, and the love of your life, and things coming together, and finding the different avenues in work, and thinking about the future together, and then gone. You're just yeah, you must have just, like, what do you do? Are you just empty? How does that? I couldn't
You
imagine to
know,
be in your shoes there. Like,
I didn't. I was in shock until later that night. I left the hospital, didn't say a word. I just looked at everyone. I just like shook my head, and everyone was like, everyone sunk, and the people were still waiting to hear about everyone else, the other guy that died. And my mom flew from Puerto Rico. My sister picked her up from Orlando, like drove her down. And it wasn't until my mom got there, and I had friends in my house, and I'm like serving them drinks, and I'm like, "Are you guys okay?" And I'm like, trying to take care of my friends, and they're all like, "What the fuck? How could this happen?"
yeah.
And it wasn't until I saw my mom that I broke. And the first words out of my mouth were about my nephew, my sister's kid, because, she adored him and he loved her so much. And I was like, what are we going to tell Ryan?
Right.
Those were my first words. And it was this constant, like, looking out for other people, and not for myself. Like, what did it matter anymore? It was like back to what does it all matter? Really?
Back to that lost feeling of
Yeah.
like fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't eat for like 5 days, and her family came down, and we had this very cathartic moment all together. From the very beginning, there was a lot of forgiveness and a lot of love and a lot of shame, and how we could evolve, because I had my part in it too. I didn't go and demand my place, and
Right.
demand that they respect her and all of that. We all had a part in it, and a lot of like karma was resolved very quickly by all of us, and how quickly we came together and to love each other and to learn from our mistakes.
Wow.
um
That's very healing.
but I
I
didn't
can imagine that you're
if
there for each other, like, and these are people who didn't approve of you or the relationship, and now you're helping each other heal, and you're being there for each other in the most tragic of tragic situations.
And Janine, that's her name,
Mm-hmm.
she's the kind of person who was like the glue of everything. She's
Right.
the one who would walk into a room, and people like this, they walk into a room and everyone feels the energy change. And she had this
Yes.
laugh that would like just melt anyone, and
Mm-hmm.
she had this way of just like taking anyone who was upset and just messing with them to the point of like they'd be happy. And she was the one that everyone wanted to be around.
Right.
And we were all there in this room together, and there was only one person we wanted to be there, and it was the absence of that brought us together to be strong for each other. you
Right.
know
Right.
and I didn't eat for 5 days. I just drank,
Yeah.
and I was sober, drinking as much as I possibly could, stone sober,
You couldn't
just
escape. You couldn't
couldn't
escape the
escape,
emotions. Yeah.
couldn't sleep. And if I slept, it was only because I was entirely exhausted, and I would wake up in the middle of the night, with my arm over on the bed, feeling the cold emptiness that was there, and agonizing and screaming, how someone could do this. These were my actual words. How could someone do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would someone do this? Because of a job, because they
Yeah.
couldn't handle losing their job. This is what they went and did to dozens, if not hundreds of people that they affected.
Oh, surely.
What do
Yeah.
those people do? So what do I do now? But that's like the question. It's like, oh, so he lost his job, so he kills people and destroys lives. Someone has just destroyed my life, killed the person I love the most, killed who I am, killed everything of my dream. What do I do? I go and
Right.
do that. You battle with these questions constantly. So it's what happens in the mind.
Right. With and there's no, I can imagine there's no answer. There's no answer. There's never ever coming to a resolve, in those times. And so you're drinking more, you're trying to, I'm sure, cover up these so, open and fresh wounds that nobody should have to deal with. Nobody should have to go through this, right? And so does everything kind of spiral from there?
Uh, yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
I knew that like my career and my life in restaurants and everything was over. Like I immediately, like I just knew I was never going back to work. There was no way I was going to be able to go to work and like pour someone a glass of champagne and be like, "Oh, how was your day? How are you
Right.
doing? Happy
Right.
anniversary."
Yeah.
And all of the work we had put in, into these lives, into these, boxes, for all of it to just be gone. Everything that we'd wanted in dreams, it's gone. It's over.
Right.
And I wasn't going to go back and just like go back to work and pretend like things didn't happen, or what a lot of people do is they dive directly back into work and they distract themselves from it.
Right.
I could have done that, but I would not have been happy. I would have been miserable. I would have hated my life even more.
And I mean,
And
kudos to you for not allowing yourself to do that, like giving yourself the space and the time and the, being aware enough that to know that, no, I can't handle this, and I'm not going to try to outwork this thing or outrun this thing. I'm, I've got to go through it. Got to give myself the time and the space to heal. That's a hard thing for people to do in a, without some sort of tragic event like that, and not going through all this other emotional stuff, right? Like taking the time to heal and having that awareness about yourself that it's not going to be good for me to go back and do what I am good at doing, what I've been good at doing, and what's been my livelihood for X amount of years, right? So at this point, do you start to look inward? Are you starting to kind of experience that journey of healing for yourself, or is there time still before this?
um, it was probably it was a few months. It was a lot of drinking.
Right.
I'd spent a lot of time up north where her family was from. We had the funeral up there, and I spent time in her house and everything. Um, like the first time I was ever in her bedroom was for her funeral. You know,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
um, and I came back and like, you know, I had people around me. I had friends. I had my mom who came and she stayed with me for a little while, and there was a lot of drinking, but it was a lot of just silence.
Yeah.
Just this shock. And I woke up, and trying to like collect the memories and to like look around at all the things. And we had this thing, we would always write each other like little letters or cards and notes, and we'd like hide them for each other. I'd hide them in her purse so she could find it later at work, or she'd leave me a card at home,
Right.
and we'd had them over the years, and I would read them, and I was reading them so I could hear her voice.
Yeah.
And I had them all collected, and I would like read them all day, and just so I could hear her. And one morning I woke up and I was like just supremely hungover, and I found a tattoo shop. It was like one of the best tattoo shops in the city, and I went with a few of the cards, and I had them tattooed on my arms, and I had never had tattoos before.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was when I began to have kind of like a sense of direction for the pain, because before then the pain was just this constant barrage that like came from this vortex inside of me. It came from in here, like it was just an axe like lodged in my chest, and it was this constant pain.
Yeah.
And the tattoos helped channel that pain into a certain direction. And I started to use psychedelics, to microdose psychedelics, but then I was also taking psychedelics when I would get tattooed.
Okay.
And it allowed me to have a very directed inner experience,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to stay still. Obviously, you got to stay still when you're getting tattooed. You can't be like
Yeah.
all bumping around.
Right.
So I would have this very internal experience where I was somewhat activating my body with her words and with these thoughts. And when it developed later on to like other pieces, I would work through a lot of traumas. After a certain point in tattoos, there's no longer this like really exceeding pain, that even brings tears. Like there were no more tears in my life. I had
Right.
shed all the tears I could possibly shed at some point, and about a year, 2 years afterwards. But I started to see that there had to be more to life. There had to
Okay.
be more than just eat, sleep, work,
Right.
sex. There's got to be something more,
Right.
And when you go around and you look around in the world, like what is it we're doing here? We
Right.
eat, we sleep, we work, we procreate.
Right.
That's it. That's the 4 things. There needs to be more. And what more was there? What more could there be for me?
Yeah.
And I'd read her words, and these words, they're, like she's very happy for me to see me happy again, and what it is that I was doing, and she's proud of me, and all of these things. And I was like in this twilight zone. I'm like, well, these words don't match up for what's happening now. Like what's going on. And I'd come into money after her death. We had both had insurance, and I hated this money. I hated it. It represented like this pain, this void. To think that like I had all this money now, and the only person who I'd want money with was no longer there. And when people they tell you all these cliches after someone dies, they're like, go out and have fun, you're going to meet someone else, she'd want you to be happy, and like these things are like a twist of the knife.
Yeah.
But people don't know what to say. People
They
don't know.
don't.
They
And
see in the
yeah.
movies.
Right. Right. Right.
No, in the movies they don't show you 3 weeks later. They don't show you 4 months later.
Right.
When everyone has gone home from the funeral, everyone who's not like in ground zero has gone home, and they're back in their lives, and they're doing, they're back to everything that distracts them. They don't show you like that doesn't happen for the person who has had a Mack truck run their life over.
Right. Right.
It just doesn't happen. But they tell you all these things, and these things they're painful, but at some point you're like, okay, let me just do it so that they can stop telling me these things.
Okay.
So I'd go out and I'd pretend to have fun, and the more it looked like I was having fun, the worse I felt inside, And
Yeah.
I couldn't really go out in Miami too much because everyone knew me. Everyone knew us. Either the places we would go to in our local town area knew us because we were regulars, or everyone knew us because of business. And it was like, I'd walk in and people were like, oh, how are you doing? Like, are you okay? Like, how's work? What are you doing for work? And it was like a constant barrage of these questions that I don't have answers to. I'm like, I'm just trying to have dinner.
Yeah.
Like a normal person.
And you can't escape this like constant reminder and the sympathy and all the seemingly like, I mean, these people are doing and saying what they can because that's all they know, and they're trying to be supportive. But for you, it's just this constant reminder of this inner turmoil that you're dealing with. And when can I be normal? When can I act normal? When can I just go out and be me and have a meal without having to relive this thing or rehash something of the past like that? I can imagine it'd be very, very difficult.
Yeah. So with that, I decided to start traveling, and I traveled, and I'd be able to just have like a moment of silence and peace and quiet, and I would go out and just be able to be whoever I was, and most of the time that was just literally sitting by myself, eating dinner or having lunch by myself, or going to a museum or something like that. But the drinking was still there, it was very much there, and it was part of my lifestyle, my life. And after a couple years, I had pushed a lot of people in my life away. People tell you like, oh, hey, Kareem, come hang out. We want you to, we want to see you. People tell you this enough times and you say no, the invitations eventually they stop coming, and I was
Right.
working really well at being alone, being lonely. And then one day, like 2 years later, I was at my best friend, who's like my neighbor. He was actually just down here in Tulum now with me. And I was at his restaurant in this place. I had a seat at the bar waiting for me every single night of the week,
Right.
and I'm there with a friend of mine. And I drink like 4 bottles of wine, champagne by myself, like this big dinner. And it's just like constant eating and drinking, like this feeling of this void that could never be filled.
Right.
And I'm like upset because like the bartender's beard is like all greasy and unkept, and he's now they're wearing baseball caps, and I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm like, what is this? And I like have this outburst and like burn my what's left of my life down. Just burn it,
Yeah.
just you know.
Right.
And I'd even like started dating again, and I was dating a manager that was working there, and like that ended that night. Like just
Okay.
totally embarrassed myself, my best friend, and I wake up the next day and I'm like, don't even know how I got home. I
Yeah.
don't remember being that hungover in a long time. And I call my friend, I call the girl I was dating, and they message me back and they're like, well, this is what happened. And I start to like remember,
Hmm.
and like finally at this point now I feel this feeling of shame. This, what am I doing with my life?
Okay.
Like, I'm alive.
Yeah. What am I doing with that? Yeah. Right.
And I literally take out a pen and a paper and I do this quick pro and con list
Okay.
and all these beautiful, amazing things that happened in my life because of alcohol and all these other things. And there was a very heavy lopside. And I decided then and there that that was it.
Yeah.
If I can get rid of all this negative, then maybe there'll be some room for some other positive coming.
Okay.
Now it was June 23rd, 2019, and I didn't have another drink after that.
And you're still sober today. I mean, I first want to say congratulations on your sobriety. And, it's oftentimes, it's these, I mean, in some circles they call them spiritual experiences, but they're these breaking points of like, okay, what, like just what you said, like I have a life and what am I doing with it? And these, we hit a, whether an emotional rock bottom, I guess, and we have to take a good hard look at ourselves and basically do what you did on with pen and paper, writing a pro and con list and seeing it in black and white right there. I need to make some changes and the alcohol needs to go, and to stay committed to that is as I know, I mean, it's not an easy road to walk. So what happens then? You get rid of the alcohol, and then I imagine you start to really, take a good look at yourself and and go. Are you seeking help from outside at this point, or are you? What does your transformation look like from there?
Well, I never wanted to go see doctors
Mm-hmm.
because everyone's like, oh, you have someone to talk to. I'm like, talk to who? Talk to someone who doesn't know the person I want to talk about,
Yeah,
or who wants to like open a book and be like, you're this, and then give me some pills.
and take
Who's going to
this. Yeah,
change who I am?
exactly.
Like, I don't even want to entertain that. So what happened from there really was this return to my youth, to the experiences that I had, these transcendental experiences and
Yeah,
these other realms, and those mushroom journeys and that transcendental experience had opened me up to this like side of the world that I knew existed, but I didn't know where to find it. And I had always
right.
been looking for it when I was younger. And that journey like took me to study into the mysteries and look into occult things and things like that, and
Okay.
like the Freemasons. And when I was in my early 20s, I visited like the Freemason lodges in Miami, and I couldn't do them. I couldn't go because I would work nights and it just didn't work. In a couple of years I was with Janine, I actually ended up working in an office for 2 years, and I ended up going through the entire journey of becoming a Freemason and everything like that. And I'm so grateful. This is an experience in my life that like I recommend to every man to seek out and to look into. Um, this brotherhood of men trying to become better men, and these were people who were there for me in my darkest time,
Right.
Um, but it is this journey of the mysteries about what life is and what life is about and what we're here
Mm-hmm.
for. And so after I stopped drinking, like I immediately felt better. Just
Yeah.
immediately within like a few days, just started feeling better. And this desire for rich, salty, fatty foods like totally subsided, and that was part of that cycle of just, feed and ingest and drink and consume
Right.
that really quieted. And I was like, okay, I feel better. I'm just gonna eat some vegetables and some salad and fish maybe. And I did that for a couple of weeks and I felt better.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm just gonna have some protein shakes and smoothies and fresh juice and salads. And then I did that for like a few weeks. And I felt immensely better. But I was still obviously severely depressed and alone. And I spent a lot of time alone by choice, and
Right.
I'm laying on my couch one night and I just gotta, I gotta do something. I don't know. I need something. There's something that I need. And I have all these like books about the mysteries and about life and the soul journey and all these things. Um, there's always something missing. There's
Okay.
always this one piece of it that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I come across on YouTube, I come across Napoleon Hill's Master Key System.
Right.
And it wasn't anything super spiritual or out of the ordinary. And it was just like this action plan. And I listened to it on repeat, like nonstop for weeks.
Yeah.
And I just decide, I'm like, all right. And I go to the backyard and like Janine always walked to the backyard and be like nice and everything like that. And I was like, I'm going to make the backyard nice. So I went back there and like I carried in 250 35-pound bags of pebbles and rocks, would go and pick them up every day in her Jeep and
Yeah.
like refitted the whole backyard and like put in like trees and put in a hot tub and like all this stuff. I'm like, I don't know who I'm making this for. Like, I don't hang out with anyone. Like, nobody comes to my house.
Yeah.
I'm making this basically for her,
Yeah. You're building this tribute almost. Yeah.
Exactly, and it got my body moving and it
Mm-hmm.
got me feeling better and everything like that. And then during the 2 years of my dark period, I had always known I was supposed to be doing something, but it was in the back of my head. I pushed it away.
Right.
And when I was younger, I had gotten into yoga and I loved yoga. I just loved it. It was like the greatest high ever. And Janine had got me a Groupon for like a month membership at the studio in town.
Okay.
And I went like 45 times in 30 days once.
Wow.
And during those 2 years, I would walk on the other side of the street from the yoga studio because I didn't want anyone to see me. I didn't want any of the teachers to see me. I didn't want to be seen and recognized because I knew I
Right.
was supposed to be in there. By this point, I had already been like microdosing a little bit with some mushrooms here and there and taking mushrooms. And I got in touch with someone to get me some LSD. So it was coming on like 3 months or so after stop drinking. And it was
Mm-hmm.
the fall equinox, September 23rd, I think it was.
Okay.
And I take a full dose of LSD by myself in my house. And I like sit down and I meditate for like 6 hours straight, just staring at this candle. And I
Wow.
don't go anywhere. I don't move or anything like that.
Yeah.
And things in my life are like coming at me and I'm thinking about them and working through them and like pushing through it. I'm like, well, that's not me, like that. I don't need that. I don't do that anymore. And I come to the now, come to the moment of the here and right now. And 6 hours in, there's no more hallucinations. You're in it, you're fully present, you're like in
Right.
the experience. There's no like things that are going to come out of nowhere and everything. Like you're now in that world and you're a part of it and you fully understand how it works and everything like that. I was
Okay.
there. And I say to myself, the suffering that's happening now, the suffering is now happening because of my refusal to accept what is. I refuse to accept that she's gone. I keep on living this life like, oh, well, if I keep on doing and having fun and trying to be all wherever I used to be, maybe I'll wake up one day and it'll be a bad dream.
Right.
And then I think to myself and I think, well, let's say karma is real. If karma is real, then that means this happened because I did this before.
Okay.
This happened because I killed someone before. And this cycle needs to end at some point.
Right.
And what do? Someone hurts me, I go out and I hurt someone else. Eye for an eye
Right.
will lead
Doesn't
to a
work.
world of blind.
Right.
And I sit there and I look back on the experiences that I had in those 2 years and everything that had come to me and all the beauty and the way I was able to be there for my family, because before that, she was my world and I didn't have any time for my family or anything like that. And I was able to be there for my friends in time of need. And I was able to do certain things for certain people and to be in certain places. And those things wouldn't have happened if things hadn't changed the way they did.
Yeah. Right.
And I was in that moment in this place of deep gratitude for everything that had happened in my life. To be able to see the world from a different lens, to be able to see it all from a different angle, to have my life completely changed, to know that there's still more to life.
Yeah.
And grateful for the money that had come to give me the time to be still, to be able to understand. I thought about the man that killed her, and I thought about the role that he played in all of it. And I thought about the depths of the cosmic order of all things and how our higher selves can only be pure goodness. And that what comes to this world comes to this world in the form of action, cause and effect. And that he played his role, his part in this play to the very best that he could have, that his highest self most likely would not have wanted to, but had to.
Wow. Yeah. That's a very, that place to get to that place of compassion. It's not, I mean, that's not easy.
To forgive him.
Mm-hmm.
To forgive him for doing what only he could do.
Right.
And in that moment, to forgive myself for having caused the entire experience from the beginning and doing it to someone else. And in choosing in that moment to not be a source of rage and anger and violence in the world.
Wow.
And that all forms of anger are violence. And to think about Janine and the sacrifice she made to give me the gift of this new life.
That's incredible, man. That's people work so hard to come to just even like a fraction of that acceptance and that understanding. And it's amazing that you could bring yourself to that place and truly forgive and have compassion and understanding for all these events and kind of what happened as a result as well. And then from that point, now you're coaching other people and transforming their own lives. I mean, can you talk about that? Like what's kind of led you to you were always a leader, and since you were a kid, you're in that leadership role. How have you been able to take your experience, your transformational experience, and get to a place where you can now facilitate and coach others to the same through your lived experience?
Well, after that LSD experience, I took a day and I integrated. In the very following full day, I walked into the yoga studio at 7 a.m. And I started what I term as my spiritual journey, an acceptance of it, and
Yes.
went every single day for 30 days, 3 to 4 times a day,
Wow.
nonstop, and had this monumental heart chakra opening by the end of it. And I continued on that path, 3 to 6 hours of yoga almost every single day for about a year, and just
Wow.
fully dedicated my life to it, and to understanding more, into meditation and everything. And I found that the key to everything lies in meditation, one, and in the movement of the body, which is the yogic, asana practice. But it can
Yeah.
happen in many forms. But so throughout that journey, and in this, continuous elevation of the vibration, of raising it higher, and to understand that everything works for our betterment and our purpose, and that our highest self is really calling us forward from the future. There's nothing that pushes us from behind. We're being compelled to move forward. And
Right.
when we embrace that pull, it's almost as if we're led in the right direction at all times. It's always whenever we try to, when we try to interact with it, or we try to adjust it, and we try to manipulate it, that things start to go wrong.
Okay. Yeah.
And along that path and that journey, I started to find the things that were missing in all those books that I had, and the thread that kind of kept it all together. And it was this compendium of understanding that the books and, the programs and stuff like that are all leading towards, but none that I found had the full lexicon of what was needed, and the knowledge that was needed. And my journey took me to find all these things and these elements that I was lacking, that I in my search I wasn't finding, and to find them and put them in place, and then to collect them in an order and somewhat of a method that anyone could follow. And the truth is, you don't have to wait until your life collapses. You don't have to wait until the Mack truck of fate and destiny come along and run you over to say, oh, I think I need to make a change. The truth is, we have that all the time, except we're not listening, or we hear it and then we brush it off.
Yes. Yeah.
So, about a year after that whole yogic time period, I found myself here in Tulum a lot, and I would find people who I would consider being teachers and coaches, and people who were teachers and coaches, coming to me and asking me for certain advice or certain things, and being
Wow.
surrounded by them all the time. And people wanting to hear things that I was saying, or have my opinion on things. And I could see that there's a lot of people out there that need assistance, and not help, but they need guidance, or to kind of be shown this path towards the way,
Right. Right.
because everyone's path is different, but there is a way. There is a way to make it on the path.
Yeah, I think that's important, that everybody's path is different, and there are different modalities to get to where you need to go. And I really, and I appreciate, that's one of the things I really appreciate about your story, is that the way, you got to where you are in life today is a lot different than sort of my journey in, through recovery, but we end up intersecting at some point along the way, right? And now, being able to share experiences together, I think is the beauty of living in our truths.
This this wealth of wisdom that we've all collected and gathered on our journey,
Mm-hmm.
and putting it out for people to be able to understand and to see, and to know. And so I started to work one-on-one with people, and now moving towards working in groups and having a course that people can actually take. And it's this framework of being able to go from step by step, how to elevate the vibration of one's own life, to be able to direct themselves, to be able to become the master of their own destiny, and to know that they can direct the energy flow of their own life, instead of constantly feeling like the world is interrupting them, and getting to the knowledge and the awareness that when something does come along that cuts through our path or creates an obstacle that we see to be looking at as insurmountable, it's for us to be able to creatively find the way to overcome it, to understand that this has been put in this place because you're able to,
Right.
because it's already known that you can do it. And it's just
Yes.
this puzzle piece for you to figure out.
So Kareem, so you've developed this program now, and you're giving back to others, and you're sharing this wealth of knowledge and experience that you've gained. And so what happens from here? Like, where does life go from here for you?
Life continues to go up from here,
Yeah.
always up the incline, up
Right.
the path. What I've been working on now actually is launching a YouTube channel with a lot of the methods and tools that I've used in my life to help be able to hone in my own emotions, to hone in
Okay.
my desires and my drive and direct it towards the avenue that I want.
Right.
And having that YouTube channel as a free source of information for people to learn meditation and manifestation and yoga and the principles of the universe and the soul's journey and what it is that we're here for and how to find one's life purpose. Um, and because I know it's needed, because I sat on a couch for weeks and months searching and searching and searching, and I have books that I've collected over dozens of years and for decades trying to find all these answers, and it's out there.
Yeah.
It is not in plain sight. It's a lot more visible now, but also again, there are a lot of things that are lacking. And when you're on this journey of lacking, you kind of find like you're just like being led around by this cat's
Yeah.
tail, and I want people to find a place where, okay, this is where everything exists that I need, and I'm going to continue on myself on this journey, continuously finding and looking for new ways and methods that other people can say, well, this doesn't work for me, but this over here works for me. Okay, I'm going to use this.
Right.
Um, and also launching my course fully online, which will be happening in December. I want to take a maximum of 20 people and work through the course with them. It's about 10 weeks. I haven't decided if it's going to be 9 or 10 or maybe closer to 12 weeks. And really work through all of the step by step process that it takes to be able to take a person, whether you're already well on your manifestation journey or you're just starting and you've just become aware that you can control your life, you can be the master of your own destiny, and work them through the step by step process to be able to take them at the end of it, have this wealth of tools, this, self mastery toolkit that they can take with them in their life
Hmm.
and be fully lifetime access. So anything that gets new or gets updated or added, you always have access to it. That comes with weekly group coaching sessions with me during the time of the course, and being able to work with other people who are also working through this process and going through the journey of self awareness, of self realization, of becoming into the understanding that you are the living force of creation. You are this universe. Billions and billions of years ago, there was nothing, and there was this big bang, and all the swirls of gas and the planets all happened, and the earth was molten, and then it became form, and then there was water and land, and then there was a tadpole, and this tadpole had some chutzpah and some ambition, and he wiggled his way on earth, and there were dinosaurs, and there was this, and then you were born,
Right.
and
Right.
you are the universe, and you have
Yeah.
every bit of the power of the creation of this universe inside of you. What you have only been lacking is the tools and the method and the formula on how to unlock it all.
Well, that's honestly very intriguing. I'm to myself, and I'm sure anyone listening. I mean, that's especially that it's offered to anybody at any point in their life or their journey. There's going to be great benefit, and I know from the meeting space that we share and the feedback you give to others that honestly, the way you give back, the way you give feedback, the way you listen, the way you share with others, it's so authentic and so deep, and there's so much knowledge behind everything that you say. People can't help but to kind of hang off of every word that you say, and I appreciate that about you. And I truly think that this interview is going to help change a lot of lives and change some perspective. And I really look forward to your YouTube channel. Finally, I want to talk about, where can people find you online? Where can people find this information if they're intrigued as I am?
Absolutely. The Transcendental Man, that's Transcendental Man, my Instagram handle, the transcendentalman.com, and YouTube is the Transcendental Man. So
Perfect.
the
Easy to
Transcendental Man
find
everywhere you go.
everywhere
Yeah.
you go. Well, Kareem, I really, I want to take this moment to like fully appreciate everything that you've shared with us. Your vulnerability is just so, and your openness to share this stuff. I mean, I'm so grateful for it, and I know anyone listening to this will be grateful as well. Brother, I love you. I think you're a true gift, and I'm grateful every day to know you and to be a part of your life and your journey. You help me and inspire me daily.
Likewise, brother, man. I appreciate this so much. I appreciate being here on this call, being with you, all the other time and the space that we share.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to speak to anybody, for anyone to be able to hear and to listen, to know that life gets better. And,
Right.
we have, the truth is we have two lives, and the second
Mm-hmm.
one begins the moment we realize that we only have one.
Right.
And when we
Right.
accept that and we embrace that, we're able to see all the things that we're able to do. And the only thing that's
Mm-hmm.
been holding us back is our fear of not knowing whether we could or not. The truth is we always could.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to you. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. Love you, brother. Looking forward to some time we can spend together in the real
Absolutely.
world very
Yes.
soon.
Yes. Yeah. Well, listen, brother, enjoy the rest of your time in Tulum. I'll let you get back to it, and I'll link up with you and chat very soon. Appreciate
Thanks,
you,
brother.
brother. All
Appreciate
right.
it, man.
Take care.